So now we are going to go into our youth panel. This is both for families, like for adults, and also for young people. I think we want to understand our youth today. So with that, I want to hand over to the moderator, Pastor Ang Hen Shung, a youth pastor from Trinity Methodist. And it's wonderful. I just found out he's my friend's son, Ang Mia Kiang. We used to do a lot of things together in business. So Pastor Ang, I'll pass on to you to handle the panel, and then we'll wrap it up at about 12:25, and then you pass back to me, and then we'll close.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you to all the panelists. That was a very insightful past hour of just hearing as well, and really how you've led it to also speak to the young and to the youth of tomorrow, of where the trajectory is looking forward as well. So we've been invited to have this panel session where we want to help us to understand the youth and really the future of what lies ahead of us. And maybe this, like what Bill has said, it speaks to the parents, or maybe some of you may be parents of youth, of young people, of teenagers, or even younger or older, and help.
Or maybe grandparents.
Or even grandparents as well, yes, and not to miss them out. Or even church leaders. As long as you're involved with young people in some way, you know, this is a conversation that we want to have today. Like, just to give a bit of an introduction, it's not just an age gap, but I believe that it's a communication gap as well. It's an understanding gap. And the better we're able to understand the next generation better, to hear what we think their needs are and what do they want in life and from the different aspects of life, I think this would not only allow us to connect better with them, but also steward them better as well. These are perhaps the youth of today are the greatest assets, resources, and gifts that the church has for the future, and we want to be able to steward these gifts as well. So to help us give a variety of perspective, we have a panel with us today who are very involved with the young people in some way or another. You know, we have a very good representation of these panelists who represent the different worlds that the young people live in, and that will give us a good insight into what we think the youth are looking for today. And so allow me to introduce them, and I'll pass it over to them later on. But firstly, we have Pastor Andrew Yeo. Pastor Andrew is a pastor at Cornerstone Community Church and has been involved in pastoring the next generation for many, many, many years. Even when I was a young person, he was already involved with the young people. And he's also a coordinator of FOPX, which is a national youth movement. Nextly, we have Annette. Annette is a producer. She's an actress. She's a musician. She wears many hats. She's very well known among the young people of today, especially on social media platforms. And she uses influence to inspire hope, to inspire life, and to inspire love. And so we're very glad to have Annette with us as well. And finally, we also have Isaac. Isaac is a voice for this generation, not only because he was a singer and also because he was a finalist on The Voice, but more so because he has been very active in being a voice for the next generation as well. And so we're very glad to have Isaac joining us today. Before we begin, and before I pass the time over to each of the panel to give a bit of their thoughts on what the youth are looking for, if you have a question along the way that you would like to ask or pose to the panelists, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen that you can click and ask a question, and we will try at the end of it to see if we're able to answer a couple of them as well. But firstly, let's start with Pastor Andrew. Now, Pastor Andrew, we want to start with you. We want to begin with the question. You know, you're a pastor who has worked with the next generation for many, many years. What do you think the young people are looking for with regards to their faith and also with regards to the church as a whole?
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew. So good to be here this morning to hear what the marketplace people are thinking. I thought those things that you guys shared are very insightful. I've been in youth ministry for the last 20 years. Yeah, I'm still young. I'm 43 this year. But I think generations changes. I realized that this generation is very engaging. I mean, they are very high on social justice, right? And they're great influencer. I still remember I had lunch after speaking for a youth ministry in our nation, and one of the leaders was sitting with us, and she took out her metal straws. All right, so these are all eco people. Then the next moment, I saw all the other members of the leadership. Right, they started to bring their metal straws too. So great influencers. They are very creative. They are trendsetters. You know, what used to be trending now online are all probably kickstarted by this generation. There used to be shuffling, dapping. I don't know whether you know all this term, but just a few days ago, my twins came back. They are only primary 2, right? They came back and they told me that, hey, this is a dance move that my friends taught me in school, and it's called the mop dance. I don't know whether you know that. Probably Annette might know what it is, but it's like a mopping mopping dance move. All right, so they're very creative. I mean, it's full on Instagram now. If you are Facebook, you are, you know, you're not so modern now. All right, so but you got Instagram, and now everyone is on TikTok. All right, so they also transform dating culture. There are lots of singles in my church, I think everywhere too, but the way they do dating now is of course through apps. Coffee, Meet Bagel, and various different apps, all right, and very internet savvy, and they are also sadly a very highly depressed and group of people who really struggle with mental health issues, right? So youth ministry really changes through the years, and what works 5 years ago might not really work nowadays, right? So I realized 3 things. I having interacting with young people through the years, I realized that these 3 things, especially, is very important for this generation. Number 1, all right, I think they are all looking for genuine relationship. They all think that character, especially for leaders, are matter most. In fact, I spoke to a few young people recently and asked them, hey, what keeps you in church, all right? It's not more of the sermons, but the relationship that they can get, all right, through the church community. They were always looking for people who are authentic. They want leaders to share their true life struggles, life stories. They don't want people to fake about things. They in fact, they can sieve you out, right, whether you are real or you are fake. And what they really value most is really integrity, transparency, honesty, grace, and truth. So young people really long for older mentors and models. All right, they are looking for mentors everywhere, and I realized that the church that offers these relationships will be a magnet for these young people. My experiences is that churches who keep young people who keeps young people have pastors who really give their time, their attention, and they don't just want to see the senior pastor being just a guy who preaches on stage. They want to approach them when it's needed. All right. So this is they are really looking for genuine relationships in the local church. Another thing I realized that because of globalization, because of technology, I mean, you can anyhow Google on the internet. You can see various theology, various sermons, online, and this generation really isn't interested in watered down weak theology, right? In fact, I think they think a lot now. They want honest answers. I mean, they are not, especially not even interested in churches that ignore theology. All right, rather they really want to think deeply and discuss theology with others who can help them to think through their positions. So today's young people don't simply accept the theology of their home church. They question it all. Every time after sermons, we in my church you receive questions from different people, right? They will email into the church, but usually not without a willingness to learn, all right? They want a church that really recognizes their questions, respect their struggles, and I think to also offer well thought out responses and say, and to the extent to say that I don't even know when necessary. Right, so they are always looking for deep theology and honest answer. And lastly, I realized that they they want hands-on opportunities, all right, being empowered. Christian services to this group means much more than just attending church, all right, or hearing sermons or paying their tithes and offerings through QR code. It actually means ministering somehow to make a difference in somebody's life. That's why you see a lot of these young people, like what the world might say that, oh, this generation can be selfish, but they can also be more interested in causes than the other generations before them, right? So whatever issue on poverty, human trafficking, addiction, or any number of social causes that we see, young people want to take on issues bigger than themselves. So that's why you see all these social justice movements are all really started by young people. So I realized that this generation are really looking for meaningful purpose to be able to serve in the local church. Yeah.
Thanks, Pastor Andrew, for your perspective. We're going to tap on a few things you said later on in some of the questions that we're going to ask. But now we want to move on to Annette. Annette, in a recent report by Digital Quotient Institute, it says that an average Singaporean teenager spends 35 hours a week online. 35 hours a week online, which is higher than the global average. And they also say that 85% of young people are on social media platforms. And I thought, who better to ask than Annette, who is someone very active on social media and someone who is very well known on social media. So it's obvious that social media plays a very critical and huge role in the lives of the young people. And so, Annette, from your perspective and your interaction with the young people, what do you think is the attraction of social media to them? What do you think it means to them? And also, what do you feel that they are looking for from social media?
Thank you so much, Chan Sheng. So I think being on social media, by the way, that statistic is quite accurate. I think I'm kind of at the average. I'm like 4 to 5 hours a day. So 35 a week. Yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah, I know kids and just teenagers, young people, we spend a lot of time on social media. And I do think that there are certain things deeper than the surface that they are looking for. And from the time that I've been spending on social media, and from speaking to all my friends who spend time on social media, and just from speaking to just friends in the church and outside the church, and just young people in general. So I think the main things that they're looking for is encouragement, acceptance, and truth when they're looking at stuff on social media. I think a lot of times we don't want to have rules, to be told certain things to do, and at the same time we're on social media to find answers. So I think a lot of young people want to find these answers for themselves rather than being told what is and what isn't. And they want this journey of being able to explore and find out how this truth can be directly applied into their lives, like their mental and spiritual health. And at the same time, when they're feeling upset, they don't want a set of rules because they don't want to be beaten down when they're not feeling good. They just want to feel accepted and lifted up and encouraged. And I think these are the things that they look for when they're on social media. And I think there's definitely a lot of space for the church to fill this gap in social media itself. Yeah. I think personally, I follow a lot of like Christian leaders or even like Christian pages and stuff. And sometimes just certain things that they post, if I'm feeling not so good that day, I'm very stressed out or something, feeling a bit anxious, there can be something that really speaks to me, and I just pause and I really take the time to kind of let it feed me for a bit. Yeah, and I'll say sometimes these little nuggets of encouragement that are posted on social media by people, especially quotes or encouragement that is rooted in the word, can really encourage somebody that you never know, because it just reaches everybody out there. And I think that's really something that's so powerful about social media, that it just transcends time and space. Personally, also because I've received DMs from people because I release music and stuff on my social media, and there are people who DM me, and not just believers but also non-believers, where sometimes they talk about how a song that of mine that they've heard can just make them cry, or it just really encourage them. And I think it's just these little things where the Holy Spirit is moving, and thank you, and there's no definite formula to it, but people can feel it. And I think moving on to how they want to feel, also have a space where they can feel be vulnerable about themselves, to feel accepted. I think that's a place where social media can also come in, where they can have conversations with people, whether they find like-minded people online or whatever. They're not maybe super comfortable with sharing in a whole group in a like CG setting. Maybe there are a lot of resources online where you can just share about your struggles. And I think there's definitely way more room for even more church based individuals or organizations to come on social media to fill that void, for anyone to maybe anonymously or just be more comfortable with sharing whatever they're struggling with. And I think what they don't want is somebody to tell them oh, do this, do that, do that, everything. They just want somebody to journey with them, to understand them, to just journey with them as they look towards the Lord, to try and seek change. And I think that's something that people have found on social media. I believe they found on social media, and will be able to, and there's even more space for them to continue to find such resources online. Yeah, so I'm just gonna close with talking about how they seek truth, because I talked about how they really want to seek like love, encouragement, and then also they want to seek acceptance to their vulnerability, right, about their struggles. I think overall they like what Pastor Andrew mentioned just now, that young people are really seeking truth, like, and it's really the very deep truth, you know. I feel a lot of times we kind of think that youth are very superficial and they want superficial things, but I think more than ever they do want some really, really deep stuff, and they understand spirituality and things like that. I was speaking to a friend who is currently who just graduated from sociology, and he was telling me about how we're kind of living in an age of post logic, where I think even in pop culture people are feeling it, because I think after the whole I would say Trump administration, and just certain things that have happened in pop culture where young people just don't understand, like, this is not logical. And we're past a stage where people are searching for logic, where I think in the past there might have been some periods in which people question religion, and they question the faith, they question Christianity, because like, what's so logical about it? But now that the world is itself not logical, it's shifted in a path where they are turning to things like, do you know, astrology is huge now in like amongst young people. Like, it just became suddenly in the past few years, it became huge in pop culture. And my friend and I were just discussing about how it's just young people really seeking out something that is beyond the logical, and they're seeking out something to satisfy the spirit, and they do want the truth, they want to seek that truth, and they are finding it. But just probably a lot of times they're just getting lost in the wrong direction. And I think this is the perfect time for us as the church also to kind of just fill that gap, to provide the answers in their seeking of the truth. So yeah, I think these are just the main things that young people are looking for on social media, especially with all this vast like array of resources and information and just connections, right? Yeah, these are the things that they're really hoping to seek for. Yeah.
Thanks, Ned. Definitely, I can see that encouragement, acceptance, and truth are something that they're really looking for in social media, from what I understand from you. Isaac, the final one that we have in final one. Sorry for the pun there, but we want to hear from our final panelist. Isaac, you're someone who is very in touch with the young people of today. You speak their language. You're involved in a lot of ongoing conversations in society with the young people. And I want to ask you on your perspective from them. You're a bit of a social justice person. You're always vocal about social causes for the young people as well. So I want to ask, whether do you see a change in today's youth in terms of how they're interacting with society as a whole, or are they they're obviously more outspoken, and maybe you can give us some insight on why is this so? Like, what do you think it represents of the next generation as well?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Hans. I totally agree with Pastor Andrew and Annette. And I think exactly, kind of one of the things that I think Annette brought up was they don't really want to be told what to do, and I think how can we approach the young people and how can we begin to lead them? This is a huge word today. The word is conversation, and conversation takes a lot of time because it's easier to tell somebody what to do. It's easier to tell them like, hey, hit this direction, do this, do that. But what the young people want is conversation. They want to be able to speak and they want to be able to listen and be listened to, and with conversation, it means also there is fellowship and relationship, which is kind of what Pastor Andrew talks about. Sometimes for different ones of us, we see relationships in a way like, hey, if I help you with your project, if I told you what to do, or if I gave you an opportunity, isn't that relationship? But we're coming to learn that the young people may not see that as relationship. They may see that as project managing. And I think what relationship looks like is not just being there to be able to give advice, but even like walking with them very patiently and explaining things and helping them to understand. Now, why that is so important is because back to what Annette said was this, that we are filled with so much information. There's so much information. So why would they need just more information from you? Conversations bring a bit of interpretation to the information. It also allows them to be able to understand better. So they don't need just another channel of someone just saying, okay, this is, hey, do you know? Hey, actually, I tell you, hey, do you know? And it's not even this like rebelliousness to go, I don't want to hear. I want to be my own man. It's not even that. It is that information can be really quite scary because there's so many things to do, to not do, you should do, you cannot do. And then the culture is shifting so fast. The goalpost moves all the time. All of a sudden, 2 years ago, it's okay to do this. Now it's not okay to do that. And it's okay to do this. And it can be very, very, very daunting for a young person. I mean, when I was like in secondary school, sec 1, sec 2, when a time where there is really no big thing about the social media, internet was just like Yahoo and Mail and Friendster. It was just a time where you have only very specific sources of information, right? Whether it's school, whether it's family, and then maybe it's church pulpit. Now 24/7, I'm bombarded. And if I don't know something, I can quickly become irrelevant, or kind of what the previous panelist from the marketplace side speaks about. There is a level of fear and there's a level of desperation. And fear and desperation can manifest in many forms. 2 forms it can manifest in. One is you have people that are very arrogant. You have people that feel like they want to appear like they know it all. Then they also can manifest to depression. It can manifest into suicide. And we see these very clear trademarks and traits, right, of young people today, where you have people that are maybe arrogant, rebellious, angsty. And then you also have a generation that are depressed, suicidal, right? And with many different forms, but we see these 2 polarizing ones a lot. And I think where a lot of us, the church, the different generations can come in is to walk and build conversations. I also want to say this, sometimes the young people will ask a lot of whys, like why, why this, why that, why this, why that. And it can be seen as maybe a level of disrespect, or like, you don't respect the journey I walked. You don't respect my wisdom and my experience. And I just want to encourage to say that the why is really a genuine inquisitiveness. Is a genuine, like, we really need to know why, that pursuit of truth. And truth is not just, what you got the Bible, that is truth. Truth actually looks like something. It's not just truth in the head, like a aha. Truth for some is, they may not really understand what that is, but they go, my truth in this season, right, is what is absolute joy. And with things like joy, it's not just about having a hate moment. It's that thing that they feel. And so they pursue many things only to realize that everything that they pursue in the world has the shelf life. Some things might have a longer runway, right? Some things can last for 10, 20 years. And then when that ends, they go searching again. And if they keep searching for things that keep failing them because the shelf life is like always like 10, 20, and then it never satisfies, that's where after a while they become jaded and depressed. And we know that we've got something, a truth, a joy, a love, a hope, a peace that has no shelf life, and it is for eternity. And so for us as a people, how do we disciple them? How do we walk with them? How do we be patient with them? And I think when we look at the life of Jesus, he really models that. He's a person of truth. He's a person of grace. He's a person of relationship. He walks with them. He talks with them. He tells them to walk on water. And then when they're drowning, he picks them up. He does the miracles, and then they forget. He takes the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, and he just completely walks and loves them in truth and grace, and not being afraid to even speak their language through parables as well, so that people will understand. And I think that's something that has not changed through the years. It's still something I think every generation will see of the next and the former. And how do we continue to keep the heart of humility so that we are able to engage, have these conversations, and really be effective in discipling the young people, because they really need leadership, and they also need thought leadership. And finally, just before I hand the time to Hans, I think another thing is sometimes a lot of the times we like to vilify, right? Maybe social media, we like to vilify, like, yeah, the young people nowadays are thinking this way or saying these things. But what I've noticed a lot of times is when we abdicate responsibility, then the secular world and other people are going to take responsibility of the thought leadership. And so it's important that if there's something that we see that there is a gap, or there is a hole, or there's a brokenness, can we as God's people take greater leadership in that space, to be able to guide in the thought leadership and disciple the generations. Yeah.
Thanks, Isaac. You know, I just want to pick up on the things that you guys have said. All 3 panelists have said, and it seems truth is a very important term that's being used so far as well. And I want to ask a question: how in this world that they are living in, where there's such a saturation of information, of both truth and half truth and untruth, how do we as parents, as elders, as leaders, help them to navigate truth without sounding authoritative? You know, it's something like you and Annette shared earlier, like, you know, they don't want to be told what to do. They want to be journeyed with, and true conversations as well. But how maybe in line with what one of the parents, one of the panelists, someone is asking on a chat as a parent, how as a parent can I initiate conversation with them? How do I as a parent do godly parenting in navigating truth with them? So maybe any one of you would like to give your thoughts on this. Maybe starting with you, Isaac.
Yeah. So I think every young person is very unique, and I wish it was going to be as simple as like, okay, just bring them out from you. But there are many, 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 many ways. And I think young people also are really sharp, and what they're really looking for is authenticity. So they're not looking for the right methodology. They're not going to care if you bring them to the right restaurant. They're not going to care if you use even the right words, but they can sniff out somebody that's being authentic and somebody that's just trying to sell a product. And I think that is going to be very definitive. So I feel like as opposed to really cracking your head of like, what can I do to make the young person like me? It is just simply, what can I do to love the young person genuinely? And if you do that, love is absolutely the greatest. Love will cause you to think. Love will cause you to be persistent, consistent, faithful, and the young person will smell it. And then if you go, well, maybe I have a kid at home, right? That just, I have given love. You have no idea. I carried them in my belly. I fed them. I gave them a house. I have loved them. What do you mean? I just want to say, for us as Christians, you cannot escape a praying parent. If you've got a praying parent, you are doomed for life. The question is just a matter of when. And so I think sometimes in love is also not about being overbearing, but love is also knowing, okay, my season now is to keep quiet, and I have to trust that the Lord will send different people into their lives. Kind of like what the previous panelists were talking about learning to trust God in the provision, not taking things in our own hands. And I think there's a level of that. So just loving authentically is going to be incredibly important, because the young people know how to sniff that out. And so whether it's bringing them out for a meal, whether it's cutting out a newspaper article and putting it on their bed, whether it's anything, and they will know it. They will know it. They will know it, and be persistent and consistent. And so that would be the hard part I want to share. Maybe the rest might want to share something practical along with that.
Yeah, like what Isaac say, I think a praying parent is really powerful. I'm a parent too. I think it's good that parents, really, especially Christian parents, to really pray for their children. All right. I mean, now with internet, nowadays they are open to everything, good and bad. All right. So it's very scary. Recent case that I was counseling, like your question, you asked how do you encourage your teens to open up to you. I think teens nowadays are very different, as much as we parents are. Sometimes we nag a lot lah, right? Asian parents, that's the way of showing love. Nag. I'm 43, my mother still nags at me, all right? So it's I think one of the ways I think to really help young people to speak to us parents, I think, is to really like I said, because of the exposure that they have, we might think that they are 16 years old, but the way they think, they might be a bit more mature to the extent. So this girl that we were reaching out to, very, of course, I've gone through a lot of issues, very with depression and everything. So did things that that she wants to really provoke her parents, right? So I mean, she went on Telegram and managed to get hold of someone who can really sell drugs, right? This is how scary this world is. So went and purchased, and of course the mom found out, was really upset. So got me down. I went to their house, spoke to her, and the first thing I asked her, hey, do you want me to talk to you as a 16-year-old girl, a young girl, children, or you want me to talk to you as like an adult? All right. The first response is, yeah, talk to me like an adult. Probably because parents know, like I say, they keep nagging at her. And when I talk to her, like really like a adult, right, and help her to understand the consequences. I mean, she began to open up. She started to pour out. She started to share, and even her mom was shocked, all right, by the things that she is. I think parents we have to come to a place where we have to learn to listen too, right? I think that's very important. And then later on, I think God really preserved this girl. Then when she passed me the package, right, I was like, wow, how come this package so big? I say, wow, can be hanged, you die, if you got caught. Then later we found out that she got scammed. Right, so scam, paid $60, so I help her to understand that, hey, the consequences, that you work, right, you work, this is $60 that your one full day paid. You work very hard and you mess up your life through this thing that you just want to provoke to make your mom, your parents angry. And then she realized that she was wrong, and the good thing is, at the end of the day, she repented, right? She was very remorseful, which is a good thing, right? So I think listening to your teenager is very important. And of course, talk to them, and in a gentle way. I realize it really works, so they will tend to open up more to you. Yeah.
Maybe this is to Annette. Annette, someone who is very involved in social media. Social media is kind of like projecting. A lot of the young people, when they use social media, they do it in such a way that they may even project not even their true self, but even creating a secondary imagery of who they wish to be instead of who they really are, right? So what does being authentic mean in such a season like that? That's one of the questions that someone's asking. What does authentic look to a young person today in terms of a practical aspect and expression?
I think kind of like, so Isaac mentioned that, I think young people these days are super perceptive. Like they'll be able to sniff it out. I think when it was still the beginning of Instagram, then they were like Instagram influencers, then they'll put advertisements and they'll sell you a product, and then you're not sure, is this an ad? Is this not an ad? Like today, once someone looks at a post where there's a product in it, they know it's an ad already. And I think just so much, they've been exposed to so much of what is real and what is not real, that they'll be able to figure it out really, really fast. And I think ultimately, how it's honestly a very difficult question to answer, because if I were to give you the entire formula of how to be authentic, then it won't be very authentic anymore. Because it's like, if you piece all these together, then it will be just a a fake thing, right? But I would say people do appreciate it when you try not to showcase just like the best parts, you know, of your life. Kind of like there's certain things where you just talk about some stuff that's just more relatable, you know, and they know, yeah, like that's how I feel as well. When you also kind of just discuss things that or struggles that they go through as well. I personally make some videos every now and then, and sometimes whether it's like to a skit or just kind of a video where I'm just talking about, you know, certain things that I've gone through in life. I think people will be able to tell whether these stories are real or manufactured, right? And I think if you really speak stories from your heart, like people will be able to identify and connect with them, and they will be able to see the authenticity in that. Yeah, so I would say the best way is really just share stories or share things that are just straight from your heart. Like you don't have to share the worst parts of your life. And then social media, you know, it's like you wouldn't post um about a fight you had with your family or something. But I think just discussing it, discussing anything that you feel would encourage somebody, or discussing something that you feel people will be able to connect to, and possibly bring some value to them in whatever that you're discussing. I think people do appreciate all that. Yeah.
Thanks. I want to pick up on something that just now earlier in the marketplace, a panelist shared. Mr. Peter Ong shared about how crisis does test and reveal the fundamentals, and it reveals it gives clarity to this whole situation. And so with that, you know, perhaps in this COVID-19, do you think that in this pandemic, has it revealed something about this generation that we haven't seen before? And perhaps also share perhaps on what do you think the challenges for this generation face in the next 5 years forward as well? Anyone? Maybe you start with Pastor Andrew. What do you think COVID-19 has shown, revealed in this generation that we haven't seen before?
Yep, it's pretty scary. I was sharing with the panelists early on. I think COVID has really changes everything. Young people, as savvy as they are, they might be doing Zoom and everything. So a lot of, in fact, a lot of youth ministry in our nations are losing young people, right, in the last 1 year, right, since COVID started. And it's very scary because they might be online, but they might also be playing games, you know, through the other screens, right? So it's kind of you know, they just lose their focus easily. So I think one of the things that we really encourage the youth pastors in our nation, we are part of all of us on this panel, except Annette, we are part of FOPX. We really reach out to the body of Christ, especially the youth ministry in our nation. You know, we encourage the youth ministry to really kickstart of getting their young people back into the church. Like I told them, hey, if you don't get your youth back in the church, we will probably, after this COVID, we might really lost everyone, right? So I think young people need that connection point. They need the community. They need people to be there to guide them, you know, to talk to them. Yeah. So I think COVID has really changed to that extent. But I also see COVID empowering young people. I've been speaking in a few churches, and I realized that we are all forced to become influencer online, right? All the churches, we have to start our online services, doing videos and everything. And imagine majority of the churches in our nation, they didn't know anything about technology, right? And these young people in the church, they rise up to the occasion, and they started to help out and to do webinars, to do YouTube streaming, Facebook streaming for their local church. So I thought this is a good thing, you know, seeing young people even helping out the local church in this COVID season. Yeah.
how about the rest of us? Has this COVID pandemic shown you a different side of the young people in terms of their needs or even the challenges moving forward?
Well, I think some good bits are a level of resilience. I think when COVID hit and circuit breaker and all that, we saw a lot of young entrepreneurs. So many people got into baking. So many people got into different creative things, and started to sell, started to make a living, started to think about their purpose, their life call. I think the circuit breaker also showed us the fragility of life. I think for young people, sometimes there's a sense of invincibility, right? It will never happen to me. The illness will never happen to me. There is just that. And that's what makes us a little bit of like a young person, right? And then when things don't go well, when things go south, that's where we become incredibly depressed because we maybe have not calculated the cost or really realized that actually life is not always in your control. And I think what that did for young people was it really allowed or had young people thinking, look, at any point, what I built could completely be shaken, right? And I think for Christians specifically, it brings to life what's said in Hebrews that everything that can be shaken will be shaken. The only thing that cannot be shaken is the kingdom of God, and I think it was a good thing for that. I think for also many young people, some of the statements they made, they always like to say, I'm so busy, if only I had more time, I tell you, me and God, we will be so tight. And then they had all the time in the world in circuit breaker, but what happened to your relationship with God? And so I think it also revealed to them that time was never the problem between my relationship with God, and it was really my heart and my posture and my attitude. I think it also brought some people to become disinterested in God because there was no longer that service that pegged them, and so it was an invitation for deeper intimacy. And then at the same time, I feel like for those who don't have their eyes on God, right, who is not anchored in Him, it's definitely a place where fear is heightened. All the more I need to grab, all the more I need to keep, all the more I need to build my reserves. I need to build. I think the previous session and what the panelists discussed on finance and investments and all that is something that really needs to be heard even more among the young people, because especially now, one of the things that's really quite big with the young people is investments, is money, is stocks. It's one of the biggest conversations online today, and we know there's nothing wrong with money and all that. That's something that's clear. But I think what Jeffrey and Peter and Huamin and Ping Sam have been saying is that there is a lot of desperation and there is a lot of fear. And we could lose a generation based on those things where it's because of desperation and fear that is so in their hearts right now. We see a generation of people that can attend service on Sunday, can say Jesus things, but they're always grabbing and always keeping, and they're holding things too tightly in order to have some level of control. So I think circuit breaker was a time that allowed people either to surrender to coming to a realization of how the only thing that cannot be shaken is God, or it causes people to not surrender, to really go and grab things if they realize that what they have can be shaken. So I need to have more of what I have. And with the world side, because they don't have God and hope, you can see how the narrative is going to be, you better grab more, you better do more, you better prepare more. And we know that that will have a shelf life and also can be shaken. Yeah.
Maybe earlier also in the panelists, they talked about digitalization, about how it's really this whole season has accelerated digitalization, and it's in brand new language as well. And with that being said, I being in ministry for the longest years, I always have parents coming up to me and says, oh, how do I get my kids off social media or get them offline? But the truth is, in this era, I think it's natural for them to be online as well. And I want to pick on what Annette shared earlier about how this generation is. A lot of times they get a bad rep because we think they're a very shallow generation. But actually, the more that we're involved in young people, they're not shallow. In fact, Annette herself shared earlier that they're very, very, they're deep. They want to go deep. They want to actually be heard. They want to explore things a lot more. I also have noticed astrology recently rising up. I've been wondering what in the world that is as well. So maybe this is to Annette and also to the rest of us. How do we disciple them in this area without vilifying the whole idea of being online or social media, and also without to the extent of even to the authority of trying to stalk their, go on their social media, control them or do anything like that. But how do we actually disciple them in this area, and how can we maybe help them to steward it well as a positive instead of a negative? As well, and just to add on to that, we do see a lot of social causes being championed by young people right now, and I think that may be one of the positives. So Annette, maybe starting with you, what do you think about this, and how can parents maybe do that? You're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah, I think it's kind of just obvious really that it's inevitable that social media can't be completely removed from our lives, and just the internet just cannot be removed from our lives, So I think instead of controlling what young people do on social media, I think it's really just giving them that option to find that truth themselves, kind of like just what I said just now. If you just we just need enough resources and individuals out there who do want to put a message of encouragement, a message of truth, a message of something out there. And kind of that's just the beauty of the internet also, it will just travel and reach them. And I think when they hear what they want to hear, it will kind of just plant a seed in their heart, even if it's not an immediate like, oh, now I'm gonna be super devout, right? Like, I think these are just little seeds that are really, really important. And I feel TikTok is actually now a great place for anyone who wants to share something about Jesus, just because it's not a established platform yet, right? So the algorithm isn't smart enough in that sense, where it doesn't, because for Facebook and Instagram, they're now feeding you whatever you like, because they have 10 years of data of you interacting with posts of whatever you believe in or whatever you like, and then you just keep getting fed the same kind of stuff. But I was on TikTok the other day, and there's this guy I forgot his name, Justin something. He's an author, he's a Christian author, apologetics author, and he just started making daily TikToks where he answers apologetics questions. And people do kind of debate with him and whatever, but he just replies them and then he just answers again. And some of these are just really useful. And of course, the answers are just, there's only so much you can say in a minute. But I think even the people who disagree with them, they're just watching every single video. And I think that's the beauty of social media, which is that it can just reach, and especially TikTok right now, because the algorithm just gives you anything from anywhere in the world. And it kind of just can reach people. And I think a lot of times for anyone in the older generation, right, like, we shouldn't be so afraid of how bad social media is, because actually there's so many benefits, so many pros to it, and there's so much that can actually, while there's bad out there, there's so much good out there as well. And like Isaac said, if you keep praying for your son, your daughter, right, I believe that they will somehow find their way to find that truth. And even if it's through little seeds like that are constantly planted, eventually they'll be able to find their way. And again, I think just being around there for them, and have with the friends around them also, who are if you're like, just having them have church friends, who will also edify them and just spread words of encouragement from the gospel and everything. I think these are just little seeds that, not just through social media, but through the people around them and everything, can eventually lead them to find the right answers. Yeah.
Hey, and
So
I
Isaac?
just want to add
Yeah.
something. Yeah, I just want to say exactly what Annette's saying, which is you can't lead fear with fear. And I think it's not just about how the kids will perceive. I think sometimes as parents, as an older generation, there's a lot of fear, but you don't understand if they go down this road of astrology, what if they become this and they eventually become a star or whatever, right? And you can't lead the generation with fear. You can't do that. What that's going to do is that you won't be able to discern accurately, and you won't be able to lead accurately. Where there's fear, right, you only can think of the short-term game. And so you want to quickly correct a belief and you want to correct a behavior. But we know that if you correct a behavior, it takes a quick, like, little time. But if you want to nurture and cultivate a belief or help them to change their belief or mindset, it's going to take a lot of time. And if it's going to take a lot of time, fear doesn't help. Fear makes you very kanchiong. Fear makes you play out, no, but then if I don't say this, then what if they do this and da 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 da. The other thing as well, it's even in leadership on social media, a lot of young people don't get their theology right. And sometimes when we hear that, we're like, I need to correct that. What do you mean? But you cannot, because not cannot, but it's like everybody is in that journey. Everybody's in that space of discovery and understanding where they're at. And if every single time they do something and you go, it cannot, I tell you, you don't understand, you just trust me first, you go and do it. After a while, they go, I don't want to talk anymore. I don't want to do anything anymore. And so for us, and that's where the world is very unforgiving, right? The world says, if you say something wrong right now, you're done. And so the young people all keep quiet. And I think the church shouldn't do that. I think it's important that we give space and we don't lead with fear so that we know and we can enjoy the space. So if example, one of your young person is into astrology or horoscope and you go, that is not of the Lord, right? You may not want to go 100 into it just yet, but maybe without the fear. And without the fear means not just about pointing the young people to the Lord. If we're pointing the young people to the Lord, then we better be looking at the Lord and finding our hope and our security in Him, that He is going to father them, as opposed to how have they changed their thought process, has they changed their thought life, as the indicator whether the needle is moving. And actually talk to them to hear what is the route that they're really going after. And I think, right, it's completely okay to allow conversations to not conclude with, thus saith the Lord. I think it's okay to leave the conversation hanging sometimes. And they may walk away going, wow, horoscope things are the best. But we need to think the long-term game plan. And the long-term game plan is eternity. The long-term game plan has Jesus in all of it. And so taking that courage and not leading in fear is going to be incredibly helpful. And not only helpful, it makes discipleship and leadership a whole lot enjoyable and allows us to run the race of endurance.
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks, Annette. I love that. I love how you're encouraging us to lead differently the next generation. I think every generation has a different language, different values, different culture as well. And so with that being said, someone asked a question in the chat that was also something that I had written down earlier. But they said this, that one of the bigger issues that many in businesses and in human resource are struggling is a young strawberry generation. They want a comfortable life. I think we're very familiar with that term, strawberry, where he's described it as wanting comfortable life and not paying the price. They want quick gratification and they cannot handle the pressure, right? Hence the term strawberry. Now, what do you think about this? Is that a label that represents them well, or is it a misunderstanding of who they are and maybe how we deal with them differently? I think a lot of times it's really about how we interact with them, and maybe it's a generational interaction communication issue rather than something deeper. So what do you feel about that? Any of us here? I'll start with Isaac. I know you're very passionate about this topic.
Yeah, well, Hans, I just want to say that Hans is not just a brilliant moderator, but he's really one of the best youth leaders around. So I'm just going to take 30 seconds to go. Hans, what do you think about this? Because you really have a lot of insight too.
I'm going to pass it to Pastor Andrew. My role today is moderator. Pastor Andrew, what do you feel? And maybe Annette as well.
I feel Sean got a prophetic word to release to this generation. Yeah, I just met one of a lady who's the owner of a Peninsula Hotel. Probably some of you might know her. Yeah, so she was telling me how she really, sometimes, she's like helping young workers, right, youth workers for the last 10 years, helping them to craft out a vision for their own lives, for giving them opportunity, empowering them. And I thought that was really powerful, and I think especially for us, for you guys, marketplace people, some of you are business owners. I love how I think one of the panelists was saying, rewarding people, when they get, when they go for courses, whatever monetary rewards or anything, just to help them, to empower them. I think this is really powerful when we empower this generation. I think sometimes when we, I think there's always a power in the words. If we keep on saying that this is a strawberry generation, I think then we are like losing hope for this generation to the extent. And I can tell you there are many stories of young people that I know of this generation who are really hardworking, right? Who are really into, like I mentioned, for social doing social justice, working out. They are very resourceful. One of them is one of my staff, right? Her name is Dawn. And of course, we all know Yishun, right? Yishun to all of us is like a bad vibe area. Nobody wants to stay in Yishun because lots of weird people. And one day, she just got inspired by the Lord, and by herself, all right? One person, she said, "Hey, I want to do something different, all right? I want to change the vibe in Yishun. I want to bring good vibes to my neighborhood." So what she did was she started to pack goodie bags, all right, by herself. And started to give out to the different housing blocks, all right, different blocks. And then a lot of people heard about it. People come in to help her, like huge group of young people, right? Then sponsors started to come in to give them free bread to give to people. And come on, she's very resourceful. She raised funds, she's working very hard, not for her own benefit, but I think they want to change how the society views, like I mentioned, they want to take on issues bigger than themselves. All right, so I believe there are also hardworking young people out there in this generation, and we cannot bypass them. Yeah.
Maybe I want to speak to as a closing for I'll go to each one to close, but maybe starting with Annette, just to close off this session. As someone who's taken a path that's less traveled, and that I think many of the youth actually want to travel in your footsteps now, and you've kind of paved the way for them. I think a lot of young people want to go into what you've done, and you've kind of been a trailblazer in the aspect of social media. What would you say to maybe a young person who may be watching this right now, or even to a parent who has a young person who maybe want to go into the media industry or content creating industry as well?
I think, let me just continue again about that whole strawberry generation thing just a little bit more first, because I think personally I have sort of been a victim of that blanket statement as well. And I was heading out to work, and then everyone around my age, like people were saying, yeah, it's a strawberry generation. But I feel that oftentimes we really, really shouldn't like see people as a whole group and just label it like that. And I think young people do not want to be labeled as a whole group like that. They want to be seen as individuals, as a person on their own, And I think that's what everyone wants to be seen as. You want to be seen as who you are as an individual, and not part of this group that is labeled as a strawberry generation, And personally, I have seen so many people who are hardworking, and if I do say so myself, I'm pretty hardworking also. And I think one of the reasons why they would say that, or the strawberry generation, they cannot take anything difficult, right? Maybe also it's partially because there are a lot of job hoppers, and like young people, they don't stay at a job for too long. They kind of change every year, sometimes every few months and everything. But I think it's just a change in generation and culture, and how now, because there's more options for them to be able to move around, then why not, And I personally stayed at a job for like 4.5 years. So that's long. I would think it's long, compared to everyone around my age. But in short, it's just everybody's journey is completely different, and everybody's character, everybody's personality, it's just all individual, and it's tough to be able, and we shouldn't look at people as a whole generation lah. Yeah. And when it comes to whatever I'm doing, I think you are asking more of advice I can give, is it? I think, again, yeah, I think to some extent, that strawberry generation thing was something I thought about, and how, like, if everyone believed that that's what they were, right, then we will not be able to achieve anything. So that aside, I would say it's really just believing that there are great things ahead of you, that the Lord has plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and taking that in truth and walking it out in whatever that you do. I think having to start out in defeat, I think we always, somehow everyone always hates on the next generation. I can't make it, everything, and it's very sad. And I think there might be people who do get beaten down by that also, because every generation has the new problems. Because first, you're hitting on them, and then later also I think the latest generation is called in like the sandwich generation, or was it the previous one or something? It's just new struggles that previously were not there. And I think we need to see that also in every next generation, that there are new struggles, while there are new things that have made it easier for them. There will also be other things that will make it more difficult for them. Yeah. And it's just identifying all those different unique struggles and overcoming them. Yeah. And so for me, I would really just say it's believing in whatever you're called to do, and seeing how you can be part of moving forward the kingdom in every single thing that you do, however small it is. Like, for example, whenever for me, it's a business of like coming up with a lot of ideas and things like that. And I truly believe that every idea I have, right, is from the Lord, it's from the Spirit, even if it's not a like Christian idea, it's just some funny TikTok, for example. Like, I do believe that, that idea is from the Lord. And I think it's really allowing everybody, and young person, creative or non-creative, to know that every single thing that they do is inspired of the Spirit, and they will not be able to do it without the Lord. That the verse that says he's the vine with the branches. Yeah. So it's like, without him we are nothing. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be so spiritual in that sense, where every single thing is like, oh, it's Christian. Like, the media industry is just sometimes, even if it's secular, we can still bring in ideas and beliefs and values from the Bible into whatever that we put out. And it doesn't have to be so directly Christian in that sense. And again, it's about like planting seeds. Like, if I talk about something that is just about faith, believing, but it's not so direct, it could still plant a seed somewhere. If I talk about encouragement, if I talk about love, yeah, I think it can still plant a seed. And I think that's one way in which it can, continue to encourage like the next generation. Yeah.
Thanks, Annette. Appreciate that, about having constant conversations, planting little seeds. It's not about the big thing, but the little things as well. Maybe Isaac, very quickly in 2 minutes, can you maybe give an encouragement to parents, grandparents, elders who are trying to connect with the young people? What is one tip or advice that you can give to them on top of having conversations? Yeah,
I just want to talk about the strawberry as the advice, which is, I think a lot of times we vilify what we don't understand, and exactly as what Annette say, it would be really sad to label an entire generation something. We as the church are not supposed to live by what the world says, thinks about other people. We don't take our bearing from conversations of the world. We take our bearing from the word of God. And I think the world will have many things to say about many issues. They have things to say about the economy. They will have things to say about finance. They have things to say about the media. They will have things to say about the generation. We have to ask ourselves as the church, what does the Lord say? Strawberry generation is not a new thing. Aren't the disciples quite strawberry towards in light of Jesus, the amount of times that they messed up and they messed up, but the Lord never said, you strawberry. Maybe they say, you have little faith, right? But it was not just a statement. It's like, how can I walk with you and guide you? And I think it's also hard, like when we don't understand somebody, we vilify them. The young generation, the people are not afraid of pain, but pain must have purpose. That's why where there's purpose, they don't mind paying $100 per month gym membership to torture their bodies. There are some things we just won't understand, but there are some things that are evergreen. People live for a purpose. People live for glory, and people live for love. And if we can understand these things, then we will be able to better understand how we approach a generation. So a tip for all of us is, I feel like when it comes to nurturing the next generation, we need to make sure we see what the world says, but that cannot be our map. That cannot be our anchor. We cannot even come and agree with coffee table talk of the generation. We need to go to God and says, Lord, what is your heart? And what is it that you see as the spies that's going into the land? What shall we see so that we can lead and we can disciple well? And that is our call as the church. And just the last point a bit about, I see the question about group counseling or family and friends. I just want to quickly say on that, it's not either or, it's both, because the counseling session is going to help to unpack, but the one that really journeys with the person is friends and family. So I think it's needed for both. I think counseling is really, really needed. And actually, a lot of young people don't have that stigma. There is, but not as much as the older generation. And what's happening right now is a lot of counseling centers are completely full. If you go and try to book a counseling session, unless it's urgent, they will take it immediately within 1 to 2 days. If not, they will have to postpone you 1 to 2 months down the road. And I think a lot of churches can really consider, could we get involved in counseling centers and all that, but not be removed from friends and family, because that's what's going to keep the young people or our lives when the counseling session is over. It's just help to unpack. Just 2 final thoughts on the strawberry generation and the counseling bit. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Hans.
Isaac. And actually, that's one of the big positives out of social media. It's broken the stigma quite a bit on mental health for the next generation. And so, that's really the power of social media for this generation. Finally, we want to close with Pastor Andrew. Pastor Andrew, very quickly, 2 minutes. What is one encouragement to parents, grandparents, the church, especially the church, maybe speaking as a pastor to churches, what can the church do to disciple the generations better moving forward?
Yeah, moving forward, I think we must really believe in young people. It's shocking to hear that some senior pastors, they don't believe in the young people because they can't bring in money. All right, so that's very scary. I think young people are not just only the future of the church; they are the church. All right, so if you put in effort to invest in them, you reap a harvest, man. You see how God can even use young people to really shake our nation. So to keep it short, I really want to challenge all of us, even in the marketplace. All right, look out for young people, coach them, teach them the ways of the Lord. I think role modeling is very important for all of us to really help them to see that, hey, being a Christian, I can be cool. Being a Christian, I can be godly. I can do things with integrity. I think this will really help us to disciple the next generation, whether they are in the marketplace or at home or in church. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
All
Pastor
right.
Andrew. Over to you, Bill.
Okay.